Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. What did your boss do that instantly destroyed employee morale? Part 6. Being a fairly large branch of a fairly large company, the movie theater where I work employs a large number of people. I believe there are over 100 of us. And because it's a movie theater, most of us are relatively young, ranging from sophomores in high school to seniors in college. Basically, over the course of the previous year, they implemented a ton of little petty rules that caused almost everyone to cool it, e.g., extending the hours so you might not leave until 1 or 2 a.m. if you're closing. However, the last straw that destroyed anyone's desire to work there was when they sent an email to all 100-something employees saying that we were no longer allowed to submit requests for leave via email for any reason. This was a sudden and startling change for those of us who don't always find the time to arrive before Sunday each week and sign a piece of paper. The request-offs on that sheet of paper were then restricted by management to 20, not for a shift, not for a day, not for a weekend, but for a full 7 days on the schedule. Only 20 of us are permitted to say, I can open on this day, but I can't close because I'll be out of town. I'll be available the remainder of the week and return the following day. Not to mention that the 20 workers who are always the first to request time off only do so when they want to go out or simply because they don't want to work, leaving the other 80 of us hanging around and pleading with non-working people to cover our shifts when we have important things to do. We can no longer request time off unless we speak with one of 4 specific managers and get it approved. In place of the previous 20 requests rule, only the first 5 or 10 employees to speak with a manager are genuinely guaranteed time off. My primary issue is that this system has deteriorated from being awful to being downright absurd. All of the managers and staff begged me about having a flexible schedule and the ability to ask for time off when I first started working there, not to mention the free movies and discounted concession prices. This job feels like it isn't worth it without that, especially when you consider the outrageous hoops you have to jump through in order to have even the slightest chance at that. Just after our previous manager got promoted to another store, she was so fantastic, our new one hires 3 new employees rather than asking if anyone would like to work more hours to cover the void. She completed this task in less than a week. Following this, we continued to operate under the previous manager schedule. Makes sense. It's alright. A week or so later, I randomly go to her with 3 other people and ask her for more hours. We also say we'll take any open shifts. She replies, alright. After a week, we, along with everyone else, truly receive fewer hours than we did previously. A lot less. Roughly 10 hours less, earning slightly more than $8 an hour, which makes sense given that there are newcomers. After 2 more weeks, about 5 people quit because the hours were too terrible for them to support their families, and they were able to find better employment elsewhere. I talked to our current manager, along with the previous employee who left, and we promised to pick up the slack and work as many hours as we can. She replies, all right. The following week, she assigns roughly 35 hours apiece to the new hires. Your ideal workers, I received 2 raises there in the same year, even though I was still receiving terrible pay. Mind you, we're the 2 best employees in the store. Before our last manager got promoted, we were both the next 2 scheduled to go into the office. We always got compliments during our shifts, never went without a penny, and we were there for more than a year. Even though we're completely perplexed, we're still willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. We thought to ourselves, maybe there was a mistake. Definitely next week we'll have good hours. 2 more weeks pass. The hours are still terrible, and during that time, someone else leaves the store and she hires 3 more people. She was tired of the other person quitting in the middle of her shift because they wanted more hours. With the exception of this one elderly woman, every employee there was new, and I was the only member of the former team remaining. I'm saying, give me S hours, I'll give S work. ceased putting in extra effort, giving up, requesting more hours that didn't exist, and began looking for other employment. Corporate decided to remodel your store because they worked in retail. Sounds fantastic. At the very least, everything was expected to be finished by January. Not at all. By the time construction begins, November's arrived. This is a sizable warehouse and store. Every night, construction was taking place, and during Black Friday, Christmas, New Year's, and Valentine's Day, we received calls from the police regarding noise coming from the apartments next door. Let's just say that it was a nightmare. Additionally, we require additional assistance during the season. Therefore, rather than employing more workers and, having people after millions of dollars were spent on this corporate-covered remodel, it seems that the new hires for our spring season cannot begin work until Mother's Day week. All 4 of them, having been informed a month in advance of being hired that the job would not begin until after, I was relieved to leave soon after that. Not one issue, at least to begin with. My previous employer, an outsourced IT company, had a flat organizational structure with some line management, only hired the best candidates, encouraged everyone to reach their full potential, and had a ticket queue where all employees worked together. There were also less than 10 employees and a clear bias towards the selected couple. As a junior, I was eager to learn everything and change the world one project at a time. On my first day, it's announced that there'll be a restructure and I'll be handling all phone support and first-line support, all calls and menial adding a user-level jobs. I was taken aside discreetly and informed that this would only last until another school leaver could be found. I was working on my PhD at the time and have a master's degree. Let's move on to the first appraisal. I put in a ton of work to master all first-line support, working 10-hour days without lunch, etc. I'm informed that because I perform so well, I can't move up to level 2. Then Vale, a senior employee, claimed in his appraisal that I should not have answered phones on my days off. Because I wasn't taking on more complex work, I wasn't receiving a pay increase either. After a few more months went by with no improvement in my specification, I began paying for my classes on the weekends. I'm taken to the boss's office without any acknowledgement because I talked to my coworker and distracted them, usually by asking questions or by pulling down level 2 work and asking for help when I was having a slow day. I'll be pulled aside for a talk about my attitude whenever I'm found in a conversation for the next month or 2 and there's any level 1 work. My boss has been searching for a junior hire for the better part of a year when he announces that a new mid-tier candidate will be hired in his place. When I question why this is the case during the meeting, I'm shouted down for not understanding the business environment. After I resubmit my resume, I receive 4 offers in a week, all of which include a pay increase of 30 to 40%, so I know I'm not as bad as I'm made out to be. I also request a private meeting to discuss my concerns and potential for promotion, which is granted, and when I inquire about the nature of my promotion, I'm told it'll be around 5%. I thus turn in my notice. He demoralizes the next L2 employee after I leave and puts me in my place. As a result, they resign without having a fallback plan, and my old job is given to the next person. The following week, everyone in the company quits except for the 2 selected ones. After a couple of months, the company goes out of business. Do you have any absurd tales to tell about your HOA, COA, or neighbors? Part 6. My first house was in a community with a homeowners association, dude. At first, everything was wonderful. I worked for a medical supply company at the time. The technicians at this company had a van that we could use to go home. Our shared 7-week on-call rotation was primarily to blame for this. Before making the purchase, I was informed that it would be against the law for company cars to be parked outside on a permanent basis, words taken directly from the indentures. One of the board members responded, it says permanently in the paperwork when I explained this to him. You won't face any problems because of that. For roughly a year and a half, this was acceptable. Then a female board member arrived at the door on a Saturday with a grievance. Everything I'd said up until then was explained. She would not have it and would not stop adding, but the indentures clearly state. I began interrupting her with, on a permanent basis, as this was going on. I finally said that the conversation was stalling and that my beer was starting to warm up inside. As I shut the door, I bid you farewell. For 10 minutes or so, she kept ringing and knocking on the bell. Instead of ringing the police, I decided to just turn the TV on and turn off the bell. I took a better paying job, so I quit that one. Although the van was no longer a problem, I still felt badly about that and several other minor incidents. I started looking for more recent residences. The land with the house on it was being developed into some lots I discovered. The old house was demolished because repairing it would have been extremely expensive. Our family was expanding, so it made sense to upgrade. It's strange how history repeats itself. I received a car from the company I had relocated to. Luckily, no schedule for being on call. It was also fine to leave it in my driveway because I wasn't part of a homeowners association. Not so quickly. The house on our lot used to be a homeowners association. The new houses constructed on this property, nevertheless, were excluded. A man across the street was furiously upset about my van. He voiced his dissatisfaction about it during a board meeting. The other members said that since we weren't affiliated with them, there was nothing they could do. The next day, Captain A-Hole made the decision to report it to the police. I was walking around when the police came. There was no knocking or noise at all because my wife was sleeping upstairs while on maternity leave at home. Over his radio, the responding officer was informed that there was nothing that could be done. My incredible neighbor, who also happens to be a board member, gave the station an explanation over the phone. After the officer departed, this guy lost all control. He cried out and screamed all the way home. One of my friends who works as an officer in the same department texted me the whole story. Even now, when I hear about one of those power-tripping jerks losing their appeal, it makes me happy. My last HOA was so awful that I moved, but the last word went to them. I went through the usual motions in getting ready to sell my house. Fresh paint that was approved, new carpet, and refinished decking. The moving truck arrived and my belongings were dispatched. The following day, I received an offer on my house and signed a contract. Everything goes according to plan until a week before closing. The paid end from the HOA who monitors the area noticed the deck restoration work being done. Put it in the deck being built file. I received a letter from the HOA threatening to place a lien on the property if we failed to submit the necessary paperwork for the construction of a deck within 5 business days. They ignored the entire 30-day warning because they had noticed the for sale sign. 5 years ago, when I built the deck, I had done exactly that. The documents and the copy of the permit I gave them were misplaced by the HOA. I had copies, which were stored with my belongings by the moving company until I moved into my new home. Thus, the HOA roadblock in the works caused the sale of my house to collapse. I was able to sell it once I had everything unpacked, located the paperwork, and given it to them. They expressed regret. They knew what they'd done, and they made no mention of regretting the time and money I lost on that deal in their apology. There's no way I could live in another HOA-governed home. The age of my townhouse is under 25 years. It turns out that the majority of board members stay for 5 to 7 years and have pushed the issue to the back burner. I've tried for years to get on the board, but no matter who gets elected, they allow the president to pay all the bills without any checks or balances. Because they genuinely think that no maintenance is acceptable, this has turned the place into a circus of emergency repairs. Thus, the main sewer line needed to be repaired urgently. Due to their disinterest in listening to the sewer company back in 2020, it was on the verge of collapsing. I discovered this when I rode my sewer line. If the main sewer line had collapsed, we would have been forced to pay a minimum of $50,000. Everyone would have had to vacate for nearly a week, and sewage would have seeped into every unit, including mine. When severe negligence is the cause of a sewer line collapse, insurance does not cover it. Everyone can't move without losing their shirt in the sale because of all the code violations and the general lack of enthusiasm in the place. The unit owners are calling me a Karen because I had to wait through several bids, hire a lawyer to force this repair, and have my garage dug up because the pipe was underneath it and on the side of the building, all because the board fails to disclose to anyone how serious this was. For more than a month, water seeping into the foundation due to the ditch that was dug, and no one from the board bothered to check if work was done correctly. However, I'm the Karen. Wait till these guys figure out, due to the refusal to even put 10% of the budget away to obtain financing, their units can only be sold for cash. Years passed before I and another association member managed to remove the toxic board members who made it impossible for anyone from outside their group to serve on the board. They forbade anyone from attending their monthly meetings. For months at a time, only 2 of the 5 board members listed in the documents would show up to meetings and make decisions. The resignation of 3 other members or their non-attendance at meetings for months beforehand would remain unknown to us until our annual meeting. They continued to win elections by persuading people to cast proxy votes for them. Many community members sign their votes foolishly to board members who ask them to, and they seldom attend meetings or participate in the community. After years of trying to wake people up, we were able to call a special meeting and remove 2 of them from the board. It was so worth the time and frustration it took. Some people truly enjoy the power that comes with serving on an HOA, even though they have no lives of their own. It's ideal for nosy people who like to impose absurd and frequently ambiguous rules on other people, though they naturally make exceptions for their friends and themselves. If you want to watch the part 5, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for support.